Arizona Well Driller Rules and Regulations. Audiobook narration script. Arizona Department of Water Resources. 2025 edition. Narrated for field professionals. Chapter 1. Introduction and Definitions, or R12-15-801. Hey there, and welcome. I'm so glad you're here. This is your Arizona Well Driller Rules and Regulations audiobook, your complete guide to the 2025 statutes and administrative rules governing well construction and licensing in the great state of Arizona, published by the Arizona Department of Water Resources. Let's dive in. Chapter 1 covers definitions, and these are really the building blocks for everything else you'll learn, so let's make sure we've got them down. An annular space is the space between the outer well casing and the borehole wall, or between an inner and outer well casing. Think of it like the gap in a sleeve around the pipe. An aquifer is an underground formation capable of yielding or transmitting usable quantities of water. This is what we're ultimately protecting with all these rules. An artesian aquifer is one overlain by a confining formation with groundwater under sufficient pressure to rise above the top of the aquifer. And a flowing artesian well is one where that pressure is strong enough to push water all the way above the land surface. Pretty impressive stuff. Bentonite is a colloidal clay composed mainly of sodium montmorillonite, a hydrated aluminum silicate. It's commonly used as a sealant, and you'll see it come up again and again. A cap is a tamper-resistant, watertight steel plate of at least 1/4 inch thickness, placed on top of all inside and outside casings of a well. It's your well's lid. Keep it secure. Casing means the tubing or pipe installed in the borehole to support the sides of the well and prevent caving. Grout, or cement grout, is cement mixed with no more than 50% sand by volume and no more than 6 gallons of water per 94-pound sack of cement. Mineralized water is groundwater containing over 3,000 milligrams per liter of total dissolved solids, or exceeding specified concentrations of arsenic, lead, mercury, nitrates, or other listed chemical constituents. A monitor well is drilled specifically to monitor water quality within a specific depth interval. A qualifying party, and this is important for licensing, is a partner, officer, or employee of a well drilling contractor who holds significant supervisory responsibilities and has been designated to take the licensing exam on behalf of the contractor. And finally, well drilling means the construction or repair of a well, or its modification, except for abandonment, regardless of whether compensation is involved. This includes deepening, additional perforating, adding or changing casing, and any change in well construction not normally associated with routine maintenance or pump repair. That's a broad definition, so keep it in mind. Chapter 2, Licensing Requirements, or R12-15-803-806. All right, Chapter 2, Licensing Requirements for Well Drillers. This is the stuff that directly affects you as a professional, so pay close attention. Section R12-15-803 is clear. No person, other than a single well licensee or a bona fide employee of a licensed well drilling contractor, may engage in well drilling or abandonment without first securing a well drilling license, and the qualifying party must provide direct and personal supervision to make sure all wells are built and abandoned correctly. That's a real responsibility. Now, let's talk about the application. Section R12-15-804 requires a verified application on a director-provided form. You'll need to include your name and address, business address, and a detailed history of your qualifying parties, supervisory experience, past employers, job descriptions, duties, and the types of equipment used. 3 references who aren't family members are also required to vouch for the qualifying party's character and experience. Here's a big one. Before a license is issued, the qualifying party must demonstrate 3 years of experience in the specific type of drilling being applied for. That can be reduced if you can clearly and convincingly show a high degree of knowledge, but it can never drop below 2 years. 2 years, minimum, no exceptions. Now the exam, Section R12-15-805. Good news, the director offers the exam at least 6 times a year. It has 3 parts: legal requirements, general knowledge, and 1 or more specialized sections. The 6 specialized drilling categories are cable tool drilling, air rotary drilling, mud rotary drilling, reverse rotary drilling, jetting and driving, wells, and boring and augering in unconsolidated material. That last one, boring and augering, is exactly what hollow stem auger work falls under. The passing grade on every section is 70%. You can only take the exam twice in any 12-month period, so make those attempts count. For fees and license terms, Section R 1215-806, the license fee is $50, which is pretty reasonable. The license expires every June 30th. Renewal is another $50. If your license has been expired for a full year or more, you'll need to apply fresh and retake the exam. So keep that renewal current, and don't forget, your license number must be prominently displayed on all drilling rigs you own or operate in Arizona using good quality paint or commercial decals. No chalk, no pencil, nothing temporary. Make it official. Chapter 3. Notice of Intent and Authorization to Drill, or R 1215-809 to 810. Chapter 3. Notice of Intention to Drill and Authorization to Drill. This is your green light process, so let's make sure it's crystal clear. Section R 1215-809 is short and sweet. The Notice of Intention to Drill must be signed by the owner or lessee of the property where the well will be drilled. Simple, but required. Section R 1215-810 covers authorization to drill. Here's the key rule. You cannot start drilling until you physically have the drilling card at the well site. It's issued by the director in your name and authorizes that specific well at that specific location. No card at the site means no drilling. Full stop. Now, there is an emergency exception. In extraordinary situations where only a notice is needed, not a permit, the director can grant emergency authorization by phone before you receive the card. But here's what you must do within 72 hours. File a written statement describing the nature of the emergency, the date and time of the request, and the name of the department employee who authorized it. The well owner also needs to file a notice of intent if one hasn't been submitted yet. Now let's look at what goes into the notice itself. Under Arizona Revised Statute Section 45 to 596, you'll need the name and mailing address of the person filing, the legal description and owner information for the land, the legal description of the well's location, the depth and diameter and type of casing when construction starts, the proposed groundwater uses, the well driller's name and license number, the design pumping capacity, and for replacement wells, the original well's capacity and the distance from the original to the replacement. The filing fee is $150 for most notices, but if you're outside an active management area, the well is solely for domestic use, and the pump capacity is 35 gallons per minute or less, the fee drops to $100. Once the director receives a complete and correct notice with a fee, they have 15 days to record it and mail out the drilling card. For wells near certain remedial action sites, it may take up to 45 days, so plan accordingly. Chapter 4, Minimum Well Construction Standards, or R 1215-811. Okay, Chapter 4, and this is a meaty one. Minimum Well Construction Requirements under Section R 1215-811. This is the technical heart of the code, so let's walk through it together. Well casing. Your casing must be strong enough to hold the borehole open and survive grouting. You can only use steel or thermoplastic casing. No exceptions without a variance. The casing must extend at least 1 foot above ground level. All casing joints must be watertight. Thermoplastic casing must meet ACM standard F480 and can only go into an oversized drill hole. No driving. Steel casing must be new or like new, meeting estimate 53, a 139, or 312 specifications. And absolutely no casing that's been exposed to hazardous materials like asbestos. Surface seal. This is critical. The seal consists of steel casing extending 1 foot above ground, with cement grout placed in one continuous pour from the bottom of the grouted zone all the way up to the land surface. The minimum steel casing length is 20 feet. Minimum annular space for grout placement is 1.5 inches. The minimum seal length is also 20 feet. Curing additives like calcium chloride can't exceed 10% of total grout volume. Bentonite as an additive is capped at 5%. Any annular space between an outer and inner casing must be completely sealed to prevent contamination. For jetting or driving wells, grout goes in the annular space to a minimum depth of 6 feet. For hand-dug wells, watertight curbing must run from at least 1 foot above ground down to the static water level. Access port. Every well with casing 4 inches or larger in diameter needs a functional watertight access port, minimum 1/2 inch diameter, so you can monitor water level or pressure head at any time. Don't skip this one. Gravel-packed wells. If you install a gravel pack, the annular space between inner and outer casings must be sealed either by welding a cap at the top or filling with cement grout from the bottom of the outer casing to the surface. Vents must open downward and be screened to keep foreign material out. Drilling materials. You're required to remove all foreign substances introduced into the aquifer during construction. That means drilling fluids, filter cake, lost circulation materials, everything, and materials that are health hazards, chrome-based mud thinners, asbestos products, petroleum-based fluids are not allowed, period. Also, drilling fluids and cuttings must be contained so they can't discharge into surface water. For monitor wells, they can be screened up to 10 feet above the highest seasonal static water level of record for contaminant monitoring purposes. They must be identified with a well registration number either on the vault cover or at the top of the steel casing. Nice and simple. Chapter 5. Special Conditions in Artesian Wells, or R1215 812 to 814. Chapter 5. Special Aquifer Conditions, Unattended Wells, and Disinfection. Some really important operational rules here. Section R1215 812 starts with artesian wells. These require extra care because of the pressure involved. Your casing must extend down into the confining formation immediately overlying the artesian aquifer, and you must route from a minimum of 10 feet into that formation all the way up to land. Surface. This prevents both surface leakage in and subsurface leakage out of the artesian aquifer. If leaks pop up near the well or around the casing, you've got 30 days to fix it. That means installing the necessary seals, packers, casing, and routing to eliminate the problem. If you can't fix it in time, the well must be abandoned. And here's one that's easy to picture. If the well flows at the surface, a flowing artesian well, you must have a control valve or other suitable means to completely stop the flow. This control must be physically present and available for inspection at the well site at all times. Always ready. Mineralized or polluted water. Wherever available data indicates mineralized or polluted water-bearing formations, the borehole must be cased and grouted to prevent contamination from spreading up or down into other groundwater zones. Section R12 to 15 minus 813, unattended wells. Keep it simple. Any well left unattended during drilling must be securely covered. Safety first. And no foreign substances getting in. Section R12 15 814, disinfection. This one's really important for public health. If the well water is intended for human consumption or culinary use without prior treatment, you must disinfect the well before removing your drill rig from the site. This follows the Arizona Department of Health Services Engineering Bulletin Number 8 on disinfection and Bulletin Number 10 on water system construction guidelines. Both are incorporated by reference into the rules. Take care of your well owners. Get it disinfected before you leave the site. Chapter 6. Well abandonment procedures, or R1215 816. Chapter 6. Well abandonment. When it's time to close a well, you want to do it right. Let's walk through section R1215 816. First things first, abandonment can only be performed by a licensed well drilling contractor or a single well licensee. No exceptions. Before you start, the well owner must file a notice of intent to abandon with the director. This notice needs to include the name and mailing address of who's filing, the legal description of the land and the well's location, the depth, diameter, and type of casing, the well registration number, the materials and methods you plan to use, when you expect to start, the contractor's name and license number, and the reason for abandonment. Once the director gets a proper notice, they'll mail a well abandonment authorization card to the designated contractor. And just like with drilling, you must have that card at the well site before you start. No card, no abandonment. Within 30 days of completing abandonment, the contractor must file a well abandonment completion report with the director. There is one exception. If you hit a dry hole or bad conditions while drilling a new well and need to abandon it mid-process, you don't need to file a notice of intent first or get a card, but all the required information must go into the completion report after the fact. Now for the technical requirements, and this is where it gets specific. The well must be filled or sealed to prevent vertical movement of water through it or through the annular space outside the casing. Surface seal construction depends on casing status. If the casing is removed from the top 20 feet, set a cement grout plug extending from 2 feet below. Land surface down to at least 20 feet, then backfill above it to grade. If the casing stays in the top 20 feet, the cement grout plug runs from the top of the casing down to at least 20 feet below surface, with the annular space also filled with cement from surface to 20 feet down. For what goes below the surface seal, a well in a single aquifer system with no vertical flow can be filled with cement grout, concrete, bentonite drilling, mud, clean sand with bentonite, or well cuttings. A well in a system with vertical flow components must be sealed with cement grout or a column of bentonite drilling mud with enough volume, density, and viscosity to truly prevent fluid communication between aquifers. That's a higher standard, and for good reason. And one firm rule: no organic or toxic materials in abandonment. Keep it clean. Chapter 7, Well Location, Capping and Enforcement, or R1215 818 to 45 to 636. And here we are at Chapter 7, the final chapter, Well Location, Capping of Open Wells and Enforcement. Let's finish strong. Section R1215 818, Well Location. Except for monitor wells and piezometer wells, no well can be drilled within 100 feet of any septic tank, system, sewage disposal area, landfill, hazardous waste facility, hazardous material storage area, or petroleum storage areas and tanks, unless the director gives written authorization. 100 feet is your buffer zone. Know it. Section R12 to 15-822, Capping of Open Wells. If you own an open well, you have two choices: cap it or abandon it. Within 5 days of capping, you must file a notice of well capping with the department, including the owner's name and address who installed the cap, the well registration number, legal description of the well location, the day cap, method of capping, and type and diameter of casing. The cap must be made tamper resistant by welding it to the casing using the electric arc method. The exception: during temporary maintenance periods not exceeding 30 days, you can use a lock instead. Monitor wells and piezometer wells may also use a lock. That's their standard. Variances under Section R1215 820 are available if extraordinary conditions exist. Submit a written request explaining the well site location, the reasons for the variance, and what alternative requirements you're proposing. A variance isn't effective until you receive written approval from the director and a drilling car stamped variance issued. Don't start work based on a verbal okay. Now, enforcement. Section 45-634 gives the director authority to issue cease and desist orders to anyone drilling or modifying a well without a valid license, without a required notice, or without a required permit. The director can also issue a temporary cease and desist immediately, with a hearing scheduled within 15 days. Civil penalties under Section 45-635 can reach $100 per day for violations not directly related to groundwater withdrawal, and up to $10,000 per day for violations directly related to illegal withdrawal, use, or transportation of groundwater. Those are serious numbers. And for criminal penalties under Section 45-636, knowingly violating this chapter is a Class 2 misdemeanor. Knowingly and intentionally withdrawing 1,000 acre-feet or more of groundwater illegally is a Class 6 felony. Falsifying a required water measuring device is also a Class 6 felony. And that wraps up the Arizona Well Driller Rules and Regulations audiobook. You've covered the definitions, the licensing process, notice and authorization requirements, construction standards, abandonment procedures, and enforcement. You're well on your way to exam ready. For the full text or additional copies, contact the Arizona Department of Water Resources, Groundwater Permitting and Wells Section. Email permit-wells@aswater.gov. or call 602-771-8527. Good luck on that exam. You've got this. End of script. Total chapters 7 or estimated runtime at one-time speed, approx. 45 to 55 minutes. Source: Arizona Statutes and Rules, Minimum Well Construction Standards, and Licensing of Well Drillers, 2025 edition.